Okay, everybody, welcome to the podcast. This is Dave Sherwin. I am the host here of the Nairobi Health Show, and I've got Jessica Van Antwerp, who is the CEO of Integral Travel. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. This topic is really interesting, and I'm just going to read your bio really quickly, and then I'll have you tell us a little bit more about yourself. But she provides wellness retreats and education to teach people how to unlock the natural healing capacity of their bodies while connecting with others and the planet. She draws on over a decade of experience in the health and wellness industry, as well as the wisdom she's gained through her personal struggles with anxiety, weight, low self-esteem, and addiction. There is nothing more fulfilling to her than empowering people in their own well-being and helping them heal their hearts. So, Jessica, thanks so much for coming on and being willing to talk about these subjects with us.
It's a pleasure.
Now, I have to start with somewhat of a disclaimer. So I had my second Pfizer shot yesterday.
Oh, okay. How are you feeling?
I have all the symptoms of mild cold and a sore throat.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not bad then.
It's not as bad as a lot of stories I've heard.
Yeah.
But my throat's a little raw, so you might get to do a lot of talking today.
Okay. All right. I'm game.
So other than that, if I sound a little raspy to people, that's why. But I feel fine, and I'm excited to be here. So I did feel worse this morning, by the way. It did cross my mind I might need to cancel some things today.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And luckily I didn't.
Good. Yeah. I've heard that the symptoms, if you have them from the second shot, that they pass relatively quickly within 6 to 12 hours. So.
Yeah, it depends. So I've had friends. I had one friend who 8 hours after the shot went into uncontrollable shaking.
Wow.
And he actually had gone out camping, and him and his wife had to go home, and then she got sick, and they spent the night just being completely miserable. So it can be kind of nasty.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing from some of my colleagues who went down with fever and chills and body aches really intensely for about 12 hours, and then it just went away.
Yeah, so this is as bad as it gets. I won't complain.
Right, exactly. I had my second Moderna shot March 29th, so about a month ago, exactly a month ago, and
nice.
And I didn't really have much worse symptoms than I did from the first shot. It was just a sore arm and some body aches that I only noticed when I was trying to sleep at night. So I was lucky.
Right. Yeah, and because we're both now vaccinated, we don't have to wear a mask during the podcast.
Exactly.
So that's awesome.
We're still socially distanced, but
we're socially distant.
so we're safe, not wearing masks.
I love it. Well, I want to learn more about you, and you're very vulnerable and transparent right here in your bio, putting yourself out there that you've been through some challenges.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit. Tell us what brought you to this point.
Oh, wow. Well, that would take a really long time. So I think
we won't go all the way back to birth. We'll just go to highlights of your health and wellness journey. How about that?
Yeah. So, struggled with low self-esteem. I think in a large part due to media and sort of like the ideal image of what a woman is supposed to look like and not really fitting that bill. Had anxiety from, I don't know, just sort of generalized anxiety, nothing like no root cause of that, that I still work with actually on a daily basis. I find that the less caffeine I drink, then the more kind of tame it is. And then of course, I have a daily mindfulness practice of meditation and Qigong that really helps just keep me calm. And, the addiction part, I think, is sort of the highlight of my journey. And my addiction was to cannabis. And I want to be straightforward about these things with people because it gives people, it makes, a relatable, someone to relate to instead of just, posing up here as this like health and wellness guru that has everything together and people just feel like that's unattainable for them. But I still work on a daily basis with my anxiety and my feelings of self-worth that, that I'm lovable and worthy of that. So it all sort of culminated for me in, well, let me back up a little bit. I was interested in doing outdoor education,
Mm.
and sort of combining the healing power of nature. And I was really interested in teaching. So I got a summer job with a company based out of California just to sort of get my feet wet and give it a try before I spent, $100,000 on grad school or something. I had a great time the first summer working with fifth and sixth graders in California, touring
Huh.
around and teaching them lessons about the landscape and the history of California and Yosemite National Park. And so I went back the next summer to the same company and went international with them that summer. And I went to Ecuador with a group of 15-year-olds.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
know. I don't know if you ever spent any time around 15-year-olds,
I have.
but yeah, they're a challenge, and especially
Yeah.
when they get into a group and there's more of them than there are of you. So it was sort of a traumatizing experience, actually. And I came back from that summer just not really stoked about outdoor education. So started exploring other options within the health and wellness field. I had become vegetarian when I was in college, primarily for animal rights reasons. And that lasted about 5 years. And my body, it just wasn't right for my body. I had some health issues come up. So
The
I started eating.
omnivore's dilemma.
Right, exactly. So I
Mhm.
started eating meat again. But in the meantime, I had noticed like it was much easier to control my weight, not eating meat and just becoming more mindful about what I was eating. I definitely did start the vegetarian diet with lots of macaroni and cheese and pizza, which is not great for the meat or for the weight, rather. So just again, started to become more mindful about nutrition. I had been introduced to yoga when I was in college and loved the way that it made me feel. And so sort of added that into my routine. And so it was sort of like heading down the path of like, okay, how else can I be healthy and help other people be healthy? So post these travel trips with kids, I was exploring transpersonal psychology or massage therapy or a yoga instructor certification. And massage therapy was just the door that just like blew wide open for me. I literally found a school that I wanted to go to and started the next day. it They had another program start. This was like October of 2008, and they had a program starting the following October, but I didn't want to wait a year. So I jumped in the fourth month of their program that they had going and caught up. And massage therapy was then even another door into the health of the body and how everything interrelates, like not only the health of the muscles as it relates to hydration, as it relates to nutrition, what people do with their bodies on a daily basis, what they don't do with their bodies on a daily basis. And it just sort of deepened my own sense of healing, and I've never received so much massage in my life as I did during the year in massage school.
Right.
So that was incredibly educational, just in terms of, because it can be an emotional experience, just being vulnerable in that way and letting someone touch your body. And so that has been sort of the anchor of my health and wellness life as a professional, is the massage therapy practice. And I started teaching the year after I got out of school. I became a TA. I specialized in shiatsu and studied very deeply in Chinese medicine. And so learned about nature, and then how nature expresses itself through our bodies, and how we can be healthier by watching the rhythms of nature and sort of syncing with them and learning from them and moving with that flow. And I know I'm kind of rambling about my history, but
It's really interesting.
mhm.
I find it fascinating. I mean, your story and what you went through personally, and how your own journey, each step of the way involved, how can I do this for other people? How can I help myself
Right,
and be serving others at the same time is interesting.
right.
And these different steps. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've gotten to the point where, one of my frustrations as a massage therapist has been this feeling that people come in and they want me to fix them. And I'm like,
Mhm.
but that's not my job. Like, I can help you, I can teach you, I can assist you. But if you're not willing to put in your own work, then, the changes that I evoke in your body, in your life, are only going to last so long, you know?
Yeah.
So it really requires active participation on the part of a person, and then education on my part of teaching them what they can do to address their own pain patterns, to help with their muscle health and help get their tissues released by, say, drinking more water. So having really hydrated tissues really allows them to relax and release during the session. So it's really become a lot about education for me, and that's what has sort of brought me into integral travel and my business now, and really this desire to empower people in their own health. And yes, I can help you, and help you feel good with a massage, and I do think that's a good part of any health maintenance program. But really teaching people that they have so much power that they don't even know, because there's a huge hole in our education system, as we have, I think these sort of health classes through middle school and high school, but I feel like they're just sort of the afterthought, you know what I mean? Or at least for me, they were. I didn't really pay that much attention in health class.
Well, part of the problem is the basics of getting a bunch of kids in a gymnasium and having them do activities, sports, that type of thing, which I'm certainly not against. And I was a high school athlete and I loved high
Yeah.
school athletics. But we had a class that I took called Lifetime Sports, which was so much more meaningful. And we did, if I remember it, we did 4 things, and we golfed. So we left the school, we went and we
Okay.
hit buckets of balls and learned how to swing a golf club. We
Cool.
did curling, went to a curling rink and
Wow.
learned
Where
how to
did you grow up?
curl
What?
in British Columbia, Canada.
Okay. Well, that explains it. I grew up in Texas. There's no, there's
No
no
curling.
curling in Texas.
Um,
Yeah.
but then we did downhill skiing, believe it or not.
Okay.
And I can't remember the other one. But the point was, those are all things you can do when you're grown up. When you're grown up, you're not going to get a bunch of other people together and go to a
Right.
gym and do the stuff that you did as a child. And so
Right.
it's kind of a dead end. Like, it introduces them to athletics. But then the fact is, some kids aren't athletic and they're embarrassed and they don't want to play dodgeball and they don't want
Right.
to. And so you have this dynamic where, apples and oranges between the kids and what their likes are. And then you always got the bullies who just want to hurt someone with the ball and
Right.
so on. And so it is a little bit of a mess. That Lifetime Sports thing that I did was much more meaningful than
That
anything
sounds
we did in a class.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, because I was an athlete also and played team sports. And so one of the things that I had to learn how to do once I became an adult was get exercise by myself. Because just like you said,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to get a bunch of adults together to play a game or a sport. Um, and and it's so much easier for me to just exercise when it's convenient for me, instead of, having to plan
Yeah.
around it in the schedule. So, that was definitely one of the hurdles with my, weight issues as an adult, was learning how to exercise on my own. And then beyond the physical activity, PE classes that we had growing up, then there were the health classes also, where they teach you about, like, if you had sex education, where they taught you about sex ed, and maybe some token nutrition classes. But again, it was just very skimming the surface. And so
Yeah.
I think so many of us grow up, we spend our whole life in these bodies, and we don't necessarily know what to do to maintain them. And
Yeah.
there's lots of focus on diet and exercise, and that's great. Those are, the definite foundations. I am sort of like adding a few elements to what it means to live a healthy life. I really encourage touch as part of a healthy life, like, because of my background as a massage therapist. But there's all these studies that are showing how beneficial touch is to our systems. It literally has been measured to increase your immune cells and your T cells. It's been measured to increase your oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin, all those happiness and bonded hormones. And that in turn then decreases your blood pressure, decreases heart rate, just helps calm the nervous system. And so stress is sort of what so many of us deal with, and touch helps relieve stress. And stress is sort of the silent killer, right? It's
Right.
on the list of contributing factors to like every major disease out there.
Right.
So if we can find ways to deal with our stress, to handle our stress, because we're not going to live stress-free lives. Like that's just not realistic, right?
Right.
So we need to have tools to handle stress. And if we can do that, then you literally change the internal functioning of your body.
So my daughter Janae came home when she was in junior high and said, Dad, they told us that we need to be touching more and that parents should give kids 8-second hugs. And
Oh, nice.
and I said, oh, okay, come here. And so we counted 1, 2, and we're like giggling, and she's all
Yeah.
laughing, and I held her for 8 seconds. And we've done that ever since. And it's really a fun thing. And it's interesting because even like if she's upset, I can grab her and hug her and go 1, 2, 3. And I'm counting. Right?
Yeah.
And she can go from being very upset to giggling and being happy quite quickly just from an 8-second hug.
Oh, that's so sweet. It's making me tear up. That's
it's a beautiful thing. It's something that we have together that we do, And so, and what you're saying about touch is especially important for children. And
yeah.
Many of us were raised without a lot of touch.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the studies on babies and orphanages that aren't
Right.
touched, right?
Exactly.
So this is just foundational to being a human and having fulfillment and fulfilled lives. We need the touch of other human beings, don't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And nature is another, element of health that is also underappreciated and underrepresented, I think, in the conversations around health. Some of the same statistics apply to spending time in nature, in terms of increasing the functioning of your immune system through a measured increase in your T cells, decreasing the stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, increasing, oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin. So there's lots of movements, particularly in urban centers, to add like green belts, and particularly in impoverished communities, because that's where a lot of like cement, is. And so
Right.
I think it's really great. There's actually a project, and I don't know the specifics of who did the study. I heard it on a podcast a couple years ago, but that the crime rates have actually decreased in urban neighborhoods where they've made an effort to add in parks and add in green trees and green belts and things like that.
Yeah. I read one of those about New York City when they started a program to get all the graffiti off the trains and to plant vegetable gardens. And so in the highly concrete boroughs, between the sidewalk and the road, there was dirt. And they took and they cultivated that. And people said, oh, people, the people walking by are just going to ruin those tomatoes. They're going to ruin those cucumbers, whatever. And what they found was that the people came down and they started working those gardens, and that there was very little vandalism of this. People respected it. And as communities, they came down and they worked those gardens together. Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. And they measured the success through physical signs. For example, they counted the broken windows in one of these neighborhoods.
Okay.
And there was a lot of abandoned buildings and that type of thing. And kids would just throw rocks through the windows and stuff like that. And they went through and they did this development program where they fixed a lot of windows, planted all the gardens and stuff. And the graffiti went down, the violent crime went down, and the amount of window breaking went down. The whole community rose together.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised about that. That's excellent.
Now, you talked about nature, getting out in nature. This is a beautiful segue into integral travel. So when did you start integral travel?
Well, I actually purchased Integral Travel in 2017. So it's been 4 years now, next month. But it was a different business when I purchased it. So it was, I was sort of asked if I was interested in buying it by the previous owner who started it in 2002. And she was a Thai massage teacher, and she had developed this international travel program where she took students around the world and taught them how to do Thai massage. So and shiatsu and Thai massage are sort of twin pillars of body work, where Thai massage is based in Ayurveda, or the yogic tradition, and shiatsu is based in Chinese medicine, the same way that acupuncture is. But from the outside, if you were to see the two things happening side by side, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It's just a little bit of philosophical differences underlying the approach. So we had met because I helped develop a 500-hour nationally certified shiatsu program, and we needed a colleague, someone in the field to approve our program. And so we had met through that process, and a number of other connections, mutual connections here in the Boulder, Colorado bodywork arena. And it's an interesting story because I almost purchased it at one point with a yoga teacher friend of mine. But for some reason, that I don't remember off the top of my head, it didn't go through. And then it was like a year and a half later, she still hadn't found a buyer. We were going through this approval process for our shiatsu program. I reached out to her, and she, and in just kind of catching up, she's like, "Oh yeah, I have a buyer. We're going to close like in the next month." Well, that was about how long it took her to fill out the paperwork for our program. And when I went to go pick it up from her, she was like, "Oh yeah, it fell through. It didn't work out. Man. Are you still interested?" And every cell in my body was just like, "Yes." So it was understood by both of us that I was going to continue traveling and teaching Thai massage. I was going to add shiatsu into the mix, which was, my specialty.
Now what's shiatsu?
Shiatsu is shiatsu. So it is a style of bodywork, like I said, based in Chinese medicine, but it's done on the floor. And you keep your clothes on as the receiver, and it allows me as the giver a lot of flexibility to move your body around, like twist you and stretch you. And then it's all about compression. So acupressure, it's the bodywork version of acupuncture. We're working with the same points and lines of energy flow in the body. With the idea that where things are overworking, stuck, painful, there are things that are underworking in the body. And so we're trying to sort of bring the extremes closer to the center. So you can experience more balance and peace in your body, if you will.
Okay.
So I had a business partner at the time, ran our first retreat to Thailand, teaching a Thai massage program. And it was a fiasco.
Oh, wow.
It was, we ran it at a loss just to sort of like get the ship out of the harbor, with a new business. And there was just so many challenges to overcome during that trip. And, But at the same time, I also experiencing some of the most challenging moments of my life. I also had this like full body, like, yes, this is really enlivening, and we had some magical experiences too. Like staying in a floating bamboo village in the middle of a lake in a national park in the center of Thailand that you have to get to by boat. It's a 45-minute boat ride. And then seeing a family of elephants like coming out of the jungle after a week of hearing them in the middle of the night, breaking down bamboo. And it was really magical. So anyway, after that experience, my business partner and I decided that she was better suited going in a different direction. And so I took over, and then I also rebranded. I decided I wanted to help more people, essentially, that, the niche of teaching people how to do this very specific thing to help other people is very small. And I wanted to help as many people as possible. And so that's when the wellness retreat sort of burgeoned. It's like, how can I help people be healthy for themselves and not, do this thing for other people. So and
you also simplified. You don't go overseas anymore, correct? They're now in the domestic US?
We did sort of kind of like bring it back closer to home,
Yeah.
just during the rebranding process and building process. And we are going to go back international. In fact,
Okay.
I just got confirmation from the folks at that Jungle Yoga retreat center in Thailand, that we have some dates on the calendar for next spring.
So this is really interesting. I told my wife 2 years ago that I want to do one of the meditation trips in India.
Oh,
There's one for 12 days where you go to Dharamsala and you go to the Bodhi tree and you have a meditative guide and you meditate as you go, and you walk even to Eagle Peak where the Buddha lived his last 30 years or whatever, meditating on the side of
wow.
the mountain. And that whole thing just sounded so cool to me. And I've done
Yeah.
meditation retreats just like a weekend, nothing like this. And so I hadn't heard of integral travel. Of course, this is my first intro to your company, but I've heard of the concept, and I've seen these things advertised in India, and I thought, and as I think of that, like we're actually going to Hawaii on Saturday, so
Oh, nice.
yeah, we're really excited, and it'll be fun, and we'll do the touristy stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's fun, and it's
Yep.
great to just go away and travel.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I both love to travel, but the fact is, we've had mixed experiences traveling. And
Yeah.
so sometimes vacations, and psychologists tell us that the anticipation of things is much greater than the actual event. This is true with children looking forward to Christmas. It's
Yep.
true with travel. Half the time we get there and then there's some frustration. There's the travel, there's the airport, there's the potential, lost luggage. And of course, there's all the fun stuff too. But a lot of times what we are expecting from the travel is unrealistic.
Right.
And I got to tell you, I've come back off some vacations more tired than when I left.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
have, right? And so it's wonderful. But what I love and what I want to talk to you more about is this concept of taking some of our vacation dollars and doing these wellness trips like you're describing. So,
Mhm.
so instead of making every trip the beach trip to Hawaii or Florida or wherever it is you love to go, we'll talk to us about that. The difference between, because to me that's the way I see it. Like it's going to cost money either way. We're going to
Yeah.
travel. We're going to go somewhere. We're going to
Mhm.
pay
Mhm.
to get away and stay somewhere and eat, and all those things
Mhm.
are going to be very similar. I
Right.
imagine the costs will be kind of similar
Right.
to doing a wellness retreat as to going on a vacation.
Right.
So taking time off work, we're going away, but we're doing it to improve ourselves
Right.
specifically,
Yep.
instead of just to see stuff and to wear a gaudy shirt.
Right. Exactly. And part of it too is taking all of the millions of decisions that go into planning your own vacation, taking those out. Like
Ah,
the only decision that you have to make is to come on one of our retreats. And then we'll take care
right.
of the rest. We have the itinerary set. We take care of the food. We take care of transportation. We kind of
Hmm.
like your personal travel valet, if you will. And then we're also your personal guides and teachers and coaches through the whole experience. So really encouraging you to go inward at the same time as you're going outward to explore. Because I think that is one of the concepts that plays into that experience you were just speaking of when you come back from vacation more tired than when you left, because you're so focused on doing and going and experiencing all the things that place has to offer. And then you lose track of, the within the internal. And so combining the two, combining experiencing what that place has to offer and the magic of that destination with also inner reflection. So you get some perspective on your own life, right? By leaving your daily flow. And then you get to sort of examine it a little bit of like, what's working for me? What's not working for me? What do I want to change? And then what does this place that we're in have to offer to me in terms of inspiration for how I can change, inspiration for different ways of doing things that I may not have considered before, particularly when you go to another country and another culture, right? And just again, the rejuvenation. So, those things that I spoke of earlier as components of health and wellness, touch and nature, those are included in all of our retreats. We do mindfulness practice at the beginning of every day, movement also at the beginning of every day to just sort of get the body moving, get ready to go, and just really nourishing yourself. So you're still out and exploring, but you're also mindful of the pace at which you're exploring, mindful of slowing down, shifting out of the stress of the daily life and into a more relaxed and rejuvenating kind of state.
Now, is this primarily singles, couples, families? What's the makeup of a typical group?
I would say singles and couples, not so much families, though I have
No
talked.
kids.
Yeah, we have talked about doing some family specific retreats, but
Okay.
we just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, and primarily people who are stressed, uninspired, have these kind of high stress corporate jobs that they need a break from. And so, yeah, singles and couples. And I find it's a really unique bonding experience for couples as well, because it's sort of this immersive experience where you just relax and unwind. And then outside of all the stress of your daily life and your to-do list, then you sort of get to remember like what brought you together in the first place,
Right.
And it's also a great, in terms of the no kids thing, also a great opportunity to take a break from the kids. Though I will say that, most of our audience, their kids are sort of grown and out of the house. It's an older demographic that we cater to, late 40s and up. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are your main locations? Like, give us an example of a couple that are coming up. Well, what's coming up and where are they?
Yeah, so we're doing a retreat in September in Colorado at a beautiful retreat center in Loveland. It's right on the edge of the mountains. So you have the plains to one side and the mountains behind you. So that'll be great. And then in November, we're going to Baja, Mexico for an 8-day,
Oh, nice.
an 8-day retreat. So we do offer retreats of different lengths. Some the one in Colorado is just 4 days. It's a Thursday through Sunday, so like a long weekend. And then the Baja Mexico one, the week before Thanksgiving, 8 days, just full of beach time, water, surf, sand, whales jumping in the ocean, little baby sea turtle hatching and crawling out to the ocean incredible. For the first time. Yeah. And that's all of these activities, again, embedded with the bookends of our days are always mindfulness practice. And then, and group discussion too.
Okay.
So that's a really unique part of it, I think.
And the food?
The food is always great. So it depends. We've had private chefs on retreats before. We've had the retreats catered by the people at the destination. So the food in Thailand was unbelievable. Like they would catch the fish from the lake where we were staying, and then or from the ocean, villa where we were, and that's what we would eat that night. It was just so incredible. And if you like Thai food, go to Thailand and have some Thai food because it's a million times better than American Thai food. Oh, it's so good.
We love Thai food. I'd love to have the original.
Well, you should come.
I should. I would love that.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be really exciting.
But
the food is focused on local, fresh, sustainable cuisine. So like the retreat center and we choose our destinations based on, their ethics also with relation to diet and relationship to their planet. So we had a retreat last spring that we actually had to cancel because of COVID, but it's a ranch just outside Rocky Mountain National Park here in Colorado. And this is a working ranch, but it's also a resort and spa. And so they raise their own cattle and they have gardens and they have beehives. And, 90% of the food they serve in their restaurant was all sourced within that 60 square miles. So yeah, we definitely vet our vendors.
Okay, so you mentioned stress as being a common denominator among people
Mm,
that would come to this. That totally makes sense, and there's a lot of stress in our society at
yeah.
the moment, and it's exacerbated by so many modern, social media, news. Everyone's political now. I mean,
Yep.
there's so many things going on that cause stress, and so I talked about kind of the negatives of travel, which sometimes are, if you come home and you're more tired than when you left, and you haven't had the experience you hoped to have, um, and I've been on like I said, meditation retreats, and my second one was really phenomenal. I had experiences there that were really transformational. I came home on a high that lasted.
Yeah.
Not forever, right? Real life sets back in, and I think that life is just naturally peaks and valleys. But
Of
I
course.
think that we have to go through some transformational experiences, and we kind of go up on a high, and then hopefully don't come down where we were before.
Right.
And it's like this peaks and valleys kind of a thing is the way I see it. Now, if a person listening is like, I have stress, this
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, what is it that they are expecting? What is it you think they could look forward to experiencing at your event?
I think the biggest gift that we have to offer, or at least my highest goal of what we're offering to people, is really experiencing a stillness of the mind and a peace in the heart. So outside of the external trappings of, the activities and the food and the whatever, it's like we're all looking for a certain experience. And particularly when you're stressed out, you just want some relief from that. And then we have our various tools and activities that we do during the different retreats, and they change from retreat to retreat based on where we are and which of my colleagues is coming with me to help facilitate and run the retreat. But that, I think, is the biggest gift, really slowing down, spending time in nature. As I mentioned, that's a part of every one of our retreats, eating amazing food, doing some unique activities that they may not have otherwise chosen to do, meeting other people that are, we have some people that met on our retreats and are now friends for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I
And
can
that,
totally picture that.
yeah, and that doesn't necessarily happen when you just take a vacation. You're in your little travel bubble, and you have your itinerary and you have your activities, and you just go, go, go. And
Yeah, you're trying to avoid eye contact with other people.
right.
You want to stick with your own group. It's the opposite, right?
Right. Like, I
Yeah,
don't have anything to offer you. I
yeah,
don't.
yeah. I'll never see you again. Don't start a conversation. It's
Yeah.
terrible. I'm so
Yeah.
bad. My wife bugs me. I get on a plane and I put my headphones in right away because I want to send a signal. I'm sorry. I'm not going to become your friend. Like, it's so bad. Uh, but I just don't want to start that conversation that then has that awkward ending. You're never going to see this person again. And it's not
Right.
like I'm unfriendly.
Right.
But I've also had the experience you described. I've got friends from like the first meditation retreat I went to. I still have friends from that
Yeah.
retreat. We stay in touch. We became friends on Facebook, and we all look forward to seeing each other at future events.
Yeah.
Last year, those all got canceled, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I totally get that. And Qigong, did I say that right?
Qigong, you said it right. Yeah. Very good.
And Qigong is part of the deal too. Talk to us about that.
That Qigong holds a very special place in my heart, particularly because it helped me recover from a nervous breakdown. So
Hmm.
I was, again, went through all of the things that all, people go through. And I was managing a wellness center, ironically, in 2012, and we were expanding and we opened a new location. I was working 90 hours a week
Oh
and
man.
had totally lost track of my self-care. Um, and just reached a breaking point where when someone said my name, I felt like glass was shattering inside my body. Like I just didn't have
Oh
anything.
wow.
I didn't have anything else to offer. And and I was also helping build the shiatsu program and in the program. And it was just too much. And I
Hmm.
had a break. And I didn't go to the hospital or anything like that. Didn't get on any meds. But that day, a person came into our wellness center inquiring about teaching Qigong. And it was this very particular style of Qigong. And I said, well, I'm the person that you need to talk to. Why don't we try a little bit? So we went into our studio. He taught me like 5 or 10 minutes, but I immediately felt its power. And
Wow.
did that practice every day for the next 6 months before I started to feel like normal again. And
Talk
I
about
think
serendipity. I mean, that's a real blessing, right? Like the
Yes.
day of your crisis,
Mhm.
pretty much, or very
Yep.
close to it, I guess.
Yep. No, the
This
day. Yeah.
person, the day of your crisis,
The day. Yeah.
the right person walks into your life. I love
Yep.
that.
Yeah. And I was open enough to, to be receptive of it. And it's amazing. So
Wow.
Qigong for those of you who don't know it combines meditation and movement. So most people are probably familiar with Tai Chi, right? You've heard of Tai Chi?
I've done a little bit of Tai Chi. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
familiar.
So then you've done Qigong, because Tai Chi is a type of Qigong.
Okay.
The same way that there are different types of yoga. There's like Hatha and Vinyasa and restorative and Yin, and on and on. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of styles of Qigong, and it's all about like the lineage, your teacher, as it came down through Chinese culture, Eastern Asian culture. And Qigong is a combination of 2 Chinese words, Qi and Gong. And Qi means energy or life force, and Gong means cultivation or exchange. So you're cultivating life force energy with this practice. The premise being that your body is self-healing, right? When you cut your finger, you don't have to really do anything. It heals itself. So it has the power to overcome a lot. So that's one of the premises. The other big premise is that Qi, energy, is everywhere. We're surrounded by energy. And this isn't some, Eastern esoteric concept of energy. This is, based in physics. Like even physicists are telling us that matter is energy. Everything is made up of energy, with these tiny, tiny, microscopic molecules just vibrating at different frequencies and different rates, different amplitudes. That it's all movement. So if we can, mindfully move and soften our bodies, relax our bodies, let go of the energy that's no longer serving us. Nature abhors a vacuum. So into that space we create when we let go of the negative energy is just this fresh Qi coming in from the universe that literally heals. The other thing I wanted to say about my recovery using Qigong from my nervous breakdown is that very little about my external circumstances changed. My boss did let me work less. But I was still working about 70 hours a week in the aftermath of that. And it was through this practice of Qigong helping me get in tune and in touch with the infinite, right? All of the space that's out there in the universe and all of the power that moves the planets in their orbits. That's the power that we're calling in the practice of Qigong. And so if that power can move a planet or create a star, then it can certainly heal my tiny little body, So it was more my relationship to the stressors in my life that I changed, did some sort of internal alchemy with Qigong that enabled me to become bigger than my circumstances. Right.
So it's a really great concept. My son does Kung Fu.
Okay.
And in his tradition and what they're doing, moving meditation is part of the deal. It's not Tai Chi, and it's slightly different than what you're talking about. And yet the movement of the body in a very mindful way, and the principles you're talking about is something he does. And so I'm a meditator. I meditate every day, and I do some walking meditation, which is moving meditation. This is again not the practice you're talking about, but I have had enough. It's similar, and I have had the insight as I've done it. I like. Do you know Thich Nhat Hanh?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. He has some wonderful walking meditations, and he teaches it really, really well. And there's something about the way he teaches it that really resonates with me. And I have some of his poems that he has you
Oh,
recite, and,
beautiful. Yeah.
breathing in, and
Right.
breathing out,
Right.
and his concept of your feet are kissing the earth. And,
Wow.
um, and so I've done these and I do them regularly. And so I've had some insight into the difference between moving meditation
Mm.
and sitting meditation.
Hmm.
My experiences with Tai Chi were kind of a disaster. I'm the guy that my wife wishes could dance, right? So
She
this
loves
is
you
like,
anyway.
she loves you, but the biggest disappointment for her in our marriage is that I have no dancing coordination, like at all.
No
She'd love to
rhythm.
do like ballroom classes, swing classes, whatever, and we've done them. And I completely fail. And they show me how to move my body. And with Tai Chi, I turn on the video. I've tried it before, and they're moving and they're opposite to me, and I don't know why, but I just have a really tough time just following along with these basic movements. Now, I probably should just suck it up, be more patient, and overcome it. So, I guess what I'm saying is, I really resonate with what you're saying. I totally can see how powerful this could be
Yeah.
for people.
Yeah.
I imagine you've had other completely uncoordinated dancers come in.
Oh, absolutely. I would say, I mean, you've taught yourself how to work out, how to do,
I can
whatever
work out.
exercise. Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
really good at
So,
rowing, just back and forth, just pull. I can do
okay.
that. That's no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. So, I would say choose one movement that you're intrigued by and just do the
Uh-huh.
repetition, just like you row back and forth and you just repeat. It's like same thing over and over. It's like choose one movement and start to do it and then just do it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. And then you drop in to this mindset where you get totally focused on the movement and you actually sort of become the movement, and then the movement actually starts to move you, because the thing about Tai Chi and all the different types of Qigong is it's not about doing anything. And I think that's really hard for Western minds to grasp, right? It's not
Mhm.
about doing, it's about allowing. And so the more you can
Interesting.
relax in the movement, then the easier it is. And my stepdaughter actually did qigong with me. My soon-to-be stepdaughter did qigong with me last Saturday for the first time, and she had that experience. It was so cool. She's 16, and she's never meditated or done anything like that before. And so she was sitting in on this class, and we were doing this movement where you just like circle your arms up and kind of bring them in, like bringing in all this life force energy. And her arms were getting tired because we had done some other movements with the arms. And she was
Uh-huh.
about to just stop, but she decided, I don't know what she decided, but somehow she just let go. And at the end of class, she was like, I feel like my arms were just doing it themselves. And I was
Even
like,
after they were tired. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like,
Yeah.
exactly. You totally got it. That's the whole thing. So,
Interesting.
yeah. And the other thing I want to say about Qigong is that there's thousands of different like styles of Qigong. So I practice a
Mhm.
style called Shengjian, which is the Qigong of unconditional love. And it's a spiritual style of Qigong. So within Qigong, there are three main types. There's martial, which is like any sort of martial art, kung
Mhm.
fu, aikido, tai chi. These are all martial styles that when sped up, you harness this energy and then you can just like throw a guy across the room.
Right.
And then there's medical styles of qigong that are specifically focused on self-healing. And then there are these spiritual styles of qigong, that have the benefit of self-healing, but they're also meant to connect you with your sense of the divine. And these aren't mutually exclusive styles of qigong. They sort of overlap like a Venn diagram. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so
Makes
uh,
sense.
yeah. So for me, it was a spiritual style that really spoke to me and just made my heart sort of sing.
And that's what you do at the retreats.
Yeah. So I like to share it with as many people as possible.
Well, it sounds really awesome. I'm sure people listening, are intrigued by the concept, especially if they've never heard of it before. Before I let you go, though, is there anything that, we've touched on a lot here. You've talked about your own story. We've talked about talked about how you came about doing this and some of your own
Yeah.
personal, very intimate stories you've shared with us of real struggle and pain. But is there anything else you'd like to share before I let you go? I've kept you a long time.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure and a delight, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you. Um, I just want to let people know that your health is in your hands, that you can take control over your health through nutrition, through diet, through mindfulness, reducing your stress. There's so many different ways. Even if it's painting or writing or something, like find a way to deal with your stress. And that'll be the best thing that you can do to unlock your body's natural capacity to heal itself. Your body wants to heal, but we have to give it the resources that it needs to heal, which includes good sleep, plenty of water, good food. But you can be doing all of those things, and if you're not dealing with your stress, then it's, sort of moot.
Interesting. And I've got to think that we have more stress as human beings than we've had in all of history right
Absolutely.
now, like literally this generation.
Absolutely.
The kids of today and what they're being raised in, and the
Oh,
amount of,
man.
we're like introducing them into artificial and unnatural stressors at a very early age. My wife and I are among the generation to first raise children with smartphones, and we screwed up in every possible way, right? We didn't know what we're doing, right?
Well, there's no
So
manual for that.
there was no manual, and so here, and luckily our children turned out okay. And
Good. Yeah.
we got a great family and everything,
Good.
but we have apologized to him, like, hey, we're sorry, we probably really screwed you up, but we didn't know.
Right.
um,
Exactly.
but that's the world we live in now, is that children are introduced to things sometimes unwittingly, sometimes too early, and then we grow up. And what you just said about stress, I never took any proactive measures to deal with my own stress till like 5 years ago,
Right.
and probably was somewhat in denial about how much stress I had.
Yeah.
We
I mean, I
just
was
don't.
sort of forced into dealing with my stress, through this
Right.
experience that I had. So I don't wish that on anyone. And I think, the more that we can rein it in on a daily basis, even though it's like you were saying with the peaks and the valleys, like, we have this high level of stress, we do our daily practice, bring it down, but then we go out into the world and have our day and stress goes back up. And then the
Yeah.
next day we do our practice and we bring it down, and we go out into the world and it goes back up. And then, then you have these sorts of, like you said, peaks and valleys. And so I think it's important that's where the retreats come in. The
Right.
retreats, like you said, have lasting benefits. So you bring your stress level way down, and then it just sort of stays, and then maybe it gradually starts to come back over months. But even that time in nature that I was referring to earlier, and its benefits on the T cells, like a 2-day, I think, camping trip in nature has an effect on your T cells that lasts for 2 months.
Wow.
They're still 2 months later, it's still at 50% of that peak where they were after that retreat.
Interesting.
So yeah, those concentrated times of retreat, relaxation, de-stressing, unwinding have long-lasting health benefits that I think are invaluable.
I agree. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing this with everybody. How do people learn more?
Visit our website. It's the hub for everything that we offer, integraltravel.com. Integral, INTEGRAL, travel.com. And we have everything from free recorded meditations to help you deal with your stress or go to sleep and sleep better, to donation-based classes online. If you're curious about Qigong, you can tune in to a class on Tuesday or Thursday morning. We have self-guided courses, and we have everything kind of up into these multi-day retreats, just in big immersive experiences. So
That sounds excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Dave.
Okay, thanks everyone for listening. And for those of you out there who are listening, this is Dave Sherwin wishing you health and success.